Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Ignite Hub and welcome to this IT Career Pathways presentation. Welcome to our guests here in person at the Hub and also our guests that are joining us virtually via Zoom. My name is Eduardo Novoa. I am the Technical and Training Development Coordinator here at the Hub, and I'm joined by my colleague, Anthony Fiora, our Live Coordinator. He is manning the technology, and he's also going to be looking at the chat for the people who are joining us online. So if you have any questions, comments, just put it on the chat, and then Anthony will relay them to me. Yeah, thanks again for being here. Today, we're going to be talking about careers in data, cloud, and web/app development. So thank you. Next slide, please. Again, this is the part 3 of a 3-part series. Okay, so we started a couple of weeks ago with the general overview. In that one, we talked about the 6 areas that we consider in IT. We talked a little bit about why IT and what is the difference between IT and computer science, some of the barriers about getting into IT, some of the benefits of a career in IT. We discussed a little bit about education and we talked about the 6 main areas. Last week, we delved a little bit deeper into careers in support, networking, and cybersecurity. And today, again, we're going to be talking for the other 3 areas. We're going to be doing a deeper dive for careers in data, cloud, and web and /app development. So a couple of things before we start. For the people that is joining us, that has joined us either for the past couple of weeks or last week, you're going to hear a little bit of repetition here and there in some areas. I'm just trying to make sure this series are recommended that you attend all the sessions, but you can attend each session individually as well. If you did not attend any of the other sessions, they have been recorded as this session is being recorded. The 2 prior sessions have been already uploaded to our Ignite Hub YouTube channel. This one will be uploaded as well within 48 hours. One more thing, everybody that registered to this presentation, regardless if you were able to attend or not, will receive an email within 48 hours containing both a link to the recording, so you can see it again if you want to, or you will be able to see the other recordings as well. And it's going to also contain a copy of this presentation in PDF format. All the links in the presentation are live if you want to do a little bit of like a deeper dive in any of the topics. So thank you so much. Next slide, please. So the objectives for today, again, we are going to do a deeper dive. We're going to explore career paths in data, cloud, and web/app development. As I explained the first week, and I'm going to start with that again, is this could potentially, the web and app development could be 2 different areas, but the skill set is, and also the processes that are used in this area are very similar for both of them. So that's why we kind of put them together. But then again, you can be interested in either or the other or both, okay? So we're going to be also discussing the skills, the training, certifications, salaries, and job outlooks for each one of these career paths. And we're going to be talking about specific job titles within this, a couple of sample titles. And then most importantly, we're also going to be talking about other helpful resources as if you're interested in any of these areas or any of the areas that we discussed last week, so how can you start doing a little bit more exploration about these careers? So thank you. Next slide, please. All right, so again, this is a repetition for the people who are joining us for the second or third time. A little bit about myself. So I have over 20 years of experience in the IT industry, and I started actually repairing computers 20 plus years ago. That is something that we no longer do. Honestly, it's not feasible. It's not really something computers have become now really kind of disposable. But anyways, then I've done a lot of other things in the past 20 years. I've spent quite a bit of time doing support. For those of you who joined us last week, we talked about support and the many things that you can do within support. I also did a little bit of system administration. I work with the security department here at Montgomery College, and then now I have pivoted a little bit into the instruction side of things. So I do have a bachelor's degree in technical management with a concentration in business information systems and a master's degree in cybersecurity. And also, I currently hold the CISSP certification. We talked about this certification last week. Is a cybersecurity specific certification. It is considered an advanced certification. Today, we are going to be talking about possible certifications in the areas that we'll be exploring today. So my current role, as I mentioned, I am the technical training and development coordinator here at the Ignite Hub. And a fun fact about myself that I'm an avid reader. I like to read anything and everything. There's always like I'm always reading a book or two, and I'm a huge fan of Star Trek, all the series, the movies, etc. So I'm a Trekkie. Anyways, thank you. Next slide, please. So if anybody would like to introduce yourselves, that is great. Or if you can tell us your occupation, or what do you expect to get out of this workshop? Again, that is something that if you want to share with the group, either here in person or online, you're welcome to do so. If not, just, it's kind of like think, what are you trying to get out of this workshop? Okay. Maybe you're just trying to get a little bit more information about these careers. Maybe you want to know a little bit more about certifications, the other resources, whatever it is. Um, Anybody? Okay, that's fine. Then we move on because we do have a lot of ground to cover. So we'll get right into it. And we're going to start with the data career paths. Okay. So the first thing, next slide, we are going to be talking about the common functions of people that work in the data careers. Okay. And again, this could be a little bit of a repeat for the people who join us on week one, but I'm going to go through this again because it's important. What does the people that work in data analytics, data science, uh, usually do? All right. So let's talk about the common functions. All right. So we talked about data mining. And what is data mining? Data mining is just the collection of data. All right. As the name implies. And like I said on week one, the term mining is really very descriptive of what this does. Just like in the real world, like I mentioned, if you are like, let's say, mining for gold, you really are collecting a lot of material. Let's say that you are looking for gold. You have to dig tons and tons and tons of dirt, and maybe just a little bit of that is actually gold, but you have to grab a lot of, because the little nuggets of gold are hitting into all that dirt. That is the same thing about data mining. It's just data collection. And like I mentioned in the first week, uh, data is one of the three biggest growing fields right now, or areas rather, in IT, due to the fact that we are collecting so much data, right? We produce data like never ever before in the world. So, or in history, I think I mentioned this on week one, that in the first 5,000 years of human civilization, all the knowledge that we have acquired until then was pretty much, included in the Library of Alexandria. And unfortunately, when that library burned, we went into dark ages because that knowledge, a lot of that knowledge was lost, and it took centuries to recover it back. The point is like, if you think about all the knowledge that was in the Library of Alexandria, and we produce more data in 1 hour today than the whole amount of knowledge that we had back then. So you can imagine it's just now, does all that data is good? No, like I said, when you're mining the data, when you're collecting the data, most of it is actually trash. It's not good. But how you separate, the dirt from the gold, that is done through data analysis. Okay. So after that data is being collected with that function, then you need to analyze it. What is good? What is bad? All right. So now you're starting to get that material. You're like, okay, this is useful information. This is trash. All right. Now that you have data that is usable, you have to do an statistical analysis, right? So put that data in context. So that data, that raw data, good data, after going through a statistical analysis and using different tools and techniques, Now you put it in context. So now that becomes information. All right. And that, okay, so this is good information. We're starting to get something with this data, right? So if we go with the mining analogy, all right, so the data analysis is basically when we kind of like find the little nuggets of gold. So statistical analysis, now we're purifying that gold and we're putting it in an ingot. So now we're deciding what are we going to do with that. Then we do the predictive modeling. And the predictive modeling is when the data, the raw data in data analysis, and then that became information to a statistical analysis. So through the predictive modeling, it becomes intelligence. How? Because that data is now you can start using to, like the name says, predictive. So now you can say, for example, we are, if you're a company that makes cars, and then you look at the data, you collect the data from all the people that has either been interested or has purchased your vehicles, et cetera, and then you put it through data analysis and a statistical analysis. So now you can say, all right, looks like that we expect in the next quarter to sell this number of this particular model in this particular color. All right. So now we can produce based on that. So we're thinking that we're going to sell, I don't know, 1,000 of these model, these units in this particular model, in this particular color. So now we can start thinking about our production lines. All right. And again, that is, if it's not done correctly, that's why you're trying to make these as to predict it as close as possible so you don't end up with either a shortage of the product or with too much product on your hands because now you have to sell it at discount, right? So that's just one way to illustrate this thing. Last but not least is data governance. And what does that mean? So I talked about that we are collecting a lot of data, and all of the data that we are collecting these days is actually data that we're freely given to companies. I mentioned that, you know, for people who are of my age or around, we remember when we actually had to pay to have an email, a mail, and it was just like, it was ridiculous. It was like $25, which adjusted to with inflation, it will be like $40 today. And it was just like a tiny little 100 megabit inbox. You had to pay to get an email, right? And now you get like all these storage space for free in Google, and you're like, oh, this is free. No, it's not free. You're paying them with your data. And we do this. We're like, I'm not trying to pile on Google. All companies are doing this. I mean, that's the model. The data is the new gold. And like I mentioned also last week, for companies, the equipment is valuable, the network is valuable, but at the end of the day, the most valuable thing that they have is their data, right? So likewise here. So we are producing all this data, right? And so the government started saying, wait, these companies are gathering all kind of data on people. Some of this is what we call PII, or personable identifiable information. What are you doing to protect this data? Where are you storing this data? For how long? Can the people actually look at the data that you've been collecting, et cetera, et cetera? So that is the data governance piece. And it has to do with who keeps the data, who owns the data. And when we are downloading all these applications, when we're installing Google and we just scroll through that EULA, and at the end it says we accept, we don't read it, but basically what you're saying is like, basically, yeah, I'm giving you your data and my data, and you can do with it whatever you want. However, there's regulations that says, hey, you still have to protect it. You have to do this, you have to do that. So that is the data governance piece. It's like how we are protecting, keeping, storing, securing this data. All right. That was the explanation. So, but now you have an idea of what the people that is in these data careers do. So let's start. Let's go to the next slide. And then let's start talking about example job titles. And on this one, I want to start from the bottom because database administrator, that was basically the only title that it was in data like 20 years ago. Or database administrators or DBAs, that is the original data analysis, data, because it was doing everything. It was entering the data, first of all, in databases, then making sure that that data was being secure, and then making the reports. So at the same time, you were doing the data entry, and I remember that that was actually a job, data entry, people that actually took the data from paper, and then enter it in a computer with a keyboard, and then the DBAs put that into the database, and then they can create those reports. There's still the DBAs, there's still database administrators, but again, due to the fact of the data, the quantity and the different types of data that now we are being collected, that function had to be broken down. And that's why we looked at the functions on the prior slide. And that's why you have data analysts and data architects, data engineers, data scientists. They do different things. But so in this particular field, the data analyst is considered kind of like the entry level job for data jobs. Data architects and engineers, they do different things. They build the databases. They actually kind of figure out the systems where the data is going to be, how we're going to store the data, how we're going to convert the data. Data scientists are the ones that do the predictive modeling mostly, but the data analyst is the people that, after the data has been collected by either, mostly by automated means, then you start like looking for those little nuggets of gold. So with that said, we're going to be looking at that particular position in particular, all right? Because as we've been talking in this series, we've been kind of focusing on the entry-level jobs for each one of these areas, all right? So let's go to the next slide. All right. So before we dissect the information that we have here, a couple of things. First of all, I have the source right there, which I got it from ZipRecruiter. And when you receive a copy of this presentation, if you click on it, you can do a little bit of a deeper dive, not only on this one, but on different careers, okay? So what are we looking here? This is the statistical data for a data analyst, okay? Or the salary data. And what this means, what we're looking here is the distribution. First of all, this is the median. So we are looking at people in this particular job title or a job title that is adjacent to it, or it kind of does the same functions of this. So they start, as you can see, starts at $30,000 and it goes all the way down to 117. Actually, that $30,000, in my opinion, is quite low. But then again, let's consider what this means. This means people that may be starting just like with zero experience and they're just kind of like brand new to this job and going all the way down to like, I don't know, 5-10 years of experience. Also remember what I told you, that this is a median, meaning that this is from all the United States. So this includes jobs from like very affluent or very high cost of living areas such as ours. And maybe it also includes like a data entry job. They still have those, and it may be in a very rural area. But as you can see, the distribution is mostly on the middle, okay? And as you can see, 70,450. So $70,000 dollars per year is an average. I think that somebody that has certain type of certifications and a little bit of experience in this area will be doing at least $10,000 more, okay? So for a data analyst can also go a lot more. And then remember what I told you, that all of these areas also include management. And when you go into management, that's where the money is. So this is just for a data analyst. And I think the data analyst actually can make more than $120,000 a year, depending on the area, depending what they do, and depending on their skill set and certifications, etc. So that's where we are. Let's go to the next slide. Let's see what the job outlook looks like for this particular title. Now we're taking one title out of this area. We're not looking at the data scientists or the data engineers. We're looking at this particular job because it's considered an entry-level job, all right? So as you can see, the first bullet, the projected data job, the growth rate for this one from 2018 to 2028 is 11%. So again, let me explain what that means. That means that it's expected to grow, okay? It's expected to grow, this particular one. Now you said, oh, but you said that this is one of the areas that are growing the most. 11% doesn't seem like much. Yes, and remember that the whole area of data includes a lot of other different jobs. This is just the entry level job. In reality, the growth in the data is for the higher level positions, but you will eventually get there, right? This is just to enter. So, but there's still growth. Now, I'm going to be very honest because I have tried to be very transparent and very honest about job prospects. The data analyst job may be impacted in the next few years by AI. 100%. Data, cyber, and we're going to be talking a little bit also in the development part. The entry level jobs may and will be potentially impacted by AI. Why? Because think about what a data analyst does. And let's go back to that analogy that I used for the mining. The data analyst is given a truck full of data and they have to separate the dirt from the little nuggets of gold, right? Do you think that that's something that can be an automated process done by an AI? Absolutely, because that's what AI is very good at. As I talked about in the week one, and I believe I have a slide or two here about AI, but AI is really good at doing those little menial tasks because there's repetitive tasks because they can do it over and over and over 1,000, a million times, and the error rate is very small. They can also do it 24/7. They don't need to sleep. They don't need to eat. They don't need to drink. You don't have to pay them benefits. They all require just energy. So that's why it's very, a lot of companies are looking at these things and like, this, but remember that there's still very limited for now what AIs will be able to do. So they may start taking a little bit from this particular data analytics, but there's still the higher functions still need to be done by a human. And I don't foresee that changing anytime soon. All right. But with that said, there's still, about $100,000, 100,000 jobs. Thank you. Projected for the next decade. All right. And there are about 150,000 active openings in the United States for this particular title or title adjacent to it. All right. So now let's talk a little bit about the skill set that you will need for this. What kind of education, what kind of skill sets we are going to need for that? So again, I'm going to repeat this from prior weeks. We are going to be looking at two different types of skills. The hard skills, all right, which are the technical skills. This is what you will need, the knowledge that you will need to enter in this area. And then we're also going to be talking about the soft skills, and like I have been mentioning, the soft skills are now looked in, if it not at the same level as the technical skills, sometimes even more. As I mentioned before, IT has evolved in the past 20 years from being something that very few companies needed or were able to afford to now it has become a business function for anybody and everybody. So with that, it stopped from being like a niche area, the guys in the basement who didn't talk to anybody, the guys who were just in front of the computers, etc. That's no longer the case. In any area of IT now, you need to communicate with clients, with other groups within the organization, with management. So the soft skills are becoming very, very, and they actually posted in most job postings. Well, they will have an area of technical skills and another area that will say good communication skills, good analytical skills. So with that said, you're going to see that the soft skills are probably going to be pretty much the same across the board on all three different areas that we're going to explore today. With that said, let's talk about these technical skills that you will need to enter in this area. Okay. So there's still a couple of all these but goodies like Excel and SQL or SQL. And let me explain. Most of us have had some experience with Excel, right? Excel is the original database. And it's a flat spreadsheet, but a lot of companies, a lot of people still start and hold a lot of company data in Excel. And Excel over the years have become a very powerful tool. There's a ton of things. There's a lot of light data analytics that you can do in Excel, a lot of data visualization that you can do in Excel if you are working with small sets of data. But with that said, uh, if you need to work in larger sets of data, you're going to need a lot more powerful tools, so you can, especially for the data visualization. We all have seen, the pie charts, the column charts in Excel. And again, like I said, that's fine and dandy, and it's good when you are doing small sets of data. But when you're working with bigger sets of data, then bigger, more powerful tools are needed, like Microsoft's Power BI or Tableau, which is a Canadian company. They produce both software, hardware, they do a lot of things related to data. But they have tools to do that, okay, for large data sets. And that's obviously, so I mentioned SQL or SQL. So SQL or SQL stands for Structure Query Language. And there's a lot of different flavors of SQL. Okay, so SQL, and believe it or not, most of you have used SQL at some point. If you have ever worked in an Access database and you have tried to create a report, you have to, give those commands in that is SQL. That particular flavor of SQL is called MS SQL or Microsoft SQL. There's MySQL, there's Oracle. So there's different flavors, but they all are very closely related. So if you know one version of SQL, it's very likely that you can jump into another version of SQL. Still used in a lot of different other tools. Again, if you're not using Excel, you're using something like some of the Oracle products. DB2 was a big one, the original big database tool. Python and R. So SQL, before we go into Python and R, SQL is basically a programming language. It's not a developing language. You cannot create applications in SQL. SQL is just a language that you use to query databases. Okay, this is the language. This is how you ask the database to say, um, unfortunately, we cannot tell a database in plain English, hey, can you give me a report on the sales for the last quarter for the Northeastern region, right? It would be great if we can say that. No, you have to tell it in SQL, and that's how the report comes. So, all right. So it's a programming language. So basically, meaning that you use that language to use on another program so it can give you a result. It's a way for you to interact with the program. Okay. Now, Python and R, those are full programming languages that they can be used to actually build applications. But in this case, Python specifically is used to create scripts, all right? So Python is one of those languages that I don't know, probably you have heard, you need to learn Python, you need to learn Python. Yes, Python is a language that has become very, very a skill that is become very sought after for the people that is working both in data and also in cybersecurity. They use Python a lot. Why? Because the newer versions of Python, it are mostly used not to develop programs. They are still used a little bit for teaching and developing lower level applications, mostly for very specific hardware pieces. You can use Python to program that. But it's not a language that is used to create, like, let's say, full-fledged apps. The real power of Python these days is that you can create the scripts. And scripts are like little programs that you use. Again, is another way that you can query these databases. Or Python is one of the tools that is used when you are trying to separate that that metaphorical dirt that you have collected. When in Python, to running these scripts is how you can look for these little nuggets of gold and discard the rest of the stuff. R is a similar language. R is actually a language that is used a lot in mathematical applications. and very related to Python. Again, used a lot into the data field. And like I mentioned, now this is where things kind of go full circle. So I said that AI and machine learning is definitely going to take over some of the lower level functions. But remember that now somebody needs to be able to program that AI to do that job, right? So while one opportunity is lost, a higher level opportunity is gained because now the company decides, yeah, I'm going to eliminate these 10 positions of data analysts. I want to replace them with AI. Well, somebody needs to decide which AI you're going to you're going to use, how you're going to train those models, how you're going to, create those queries for the reports, how you're going to do the prompting. So that's a different ball of wax, a different knowledge, and it's still being developed. But that's basically and remember, also, this is not a known all-inclusive list. If you look at job postings, you will find a lot of these, some of these, or you may find something even more exotic, but it's just an idea of some of the things that you can expect to find in job postings for data analysts, okay? So that's as, sorry, as far as like your technical skills. Now, let's go to the next slide and let's talk about those soft skills. And I'm going to go through this, and I think that this slide is going to be exactly the same for the other two areas. But again, this may be a little bit of a repeat for our hosts, our guests that are joining us for the second or third time. So we talked about communication, right? And that's pretty clear. Communication, and I already explained the reason why. The reason is because we people in IT, we are no longer the people that is in the basement, in the office that doesn't talk to anybody. They're like very antisocial. They're just like, no, that's no longer the case. We, as IT has become a business function, the capacity of communicate properly, both written and verbal, it's super, super important. Again, because you're going to be communicating with clients, you're going to be communicating with colleagues, with IT, other departments within IT, or without other departments within the organization, right? And then you're going to be talking to stakeholders. You're going to be talking to management, and so again, like I mentioned last week when I was talking about cybersecurity, said you may be called to the CEO office to say, why are you guys asking for this $500,000 tool? What is going to do for me? So you need to, again, and I'm not saying that CEOs are very smart people. There's a reason why they're CEOs. They may not be very technical, but you need to be able to say, listen, sir, ma'am, the reason that we need this tool is because this is going to increase your productivity. This is going to do this, is going to do this for you. Okay. In language that they can understand. Again, and then you may have to talk to a client that has zero technical knowledge, and you need to use real world examples that they can relate to. So that is that communication piece. I talked about organization and why is that important. It's because in IT, regardless of the area that you choose, it is very likely that you usually don't get to work in one project at a time. 5, 6 things come at the same time. And you need to kind of know, okay, which one I need to address first? Which one is the one that I need to take care of today, the next hour, the next week, whatever it is? Which one can wait a little bit, but I cannot lose sight of that one. So that's a little bit of the organization. And analysis, again, super important. This particular position that we're discussing is actually analysis is in the title, is in the job title. It's like data analyst. So analysis means your capacity to look at something and with maybe limited or no prior information on what you're looking at and figuring out what it is and creating a plan of how you're going to tackle the situation, how you're going to, what process are you going to follow, and how you're going to implement a solution. So that is huge. Um, and the next one is quite important. I mentioned that in IT, the learning and research are incredibly important. I think I mentioned this before. I've done a fair amount of schooling for this thing in the past 20 plus years, but I can truly tell you that of everything that I know, maybe 50, 60% I learned in school. The rest I had to learn myself. So you need to be able to be a self-learner, okay? Because the technology changes so much, or you may be confronted with something that you don't know, and you need to learn it really quick, okay? You need to learn it like in a week, like what is this? What is that I'm looking at? Or at least have a pretty good idea what it is. So having that capacity of doing research and learning by yourself, it's paramount. And last but not least is interpersonal, and that's the nonverbal communication. And basically, what that boils down to is being an amenable person, okay? Being you being professional and using correct body language, and that's the kind that. But unfortunately, we have to put it there because again, IT for the longest time, people had this bad, connotation or being very brusque, very, not patient. So that's what it comes to. So with that said, let's go to the next slide. And all right, so this is the moment for reflection. I have talked a lot, and probably, I don't know, there's a lot of things that you might have found out that are new to you, or maybe you knew all about this, but and then again, if you guys want to share, by all means. Otherwise, use this time to kind of reflect a little bit of what was covered in this section. What stood out for you? What's the thing that it was like, wow, I didn't know about this data field, or about these data positions, or about the amount of the stuff that's happening. And again, this is a personal question that, are you interested in a career in data? Um, these are questions that you may ask yourselves as we go through the presentation, and like, okay, so with what I learned, am I interested? No, we're good. All right. Then let's move on. Let's move on to the next area. Oh, we have one. Okay, go ahead, please.
We have one question from Sylvia in the chat. What is the step forward for someone who only has an associate degree in computer science trying to go into tech?
Okay, that is a very good question. So computer science, it depends on what you want to do with computer science. And I think that I may be able to better answer that question when we go to the web and app development, because that's more of the area that you're trying to do. I believe, actually, thank you for that question, Sylvia, because it's the main obstacle that a lot of recent graduates are going to find is that you don't have enough experience. You might have it, by the way, Sylvia, I don't know. But when you're trying to look for a job, a lot of people put the education first, which it's fine. That's what I did. That's what a lot of people have done. They go and they get their associate, they get their certification, they get their bachelor's, and they go like, okay, I'm ready to find for a job. And then the companies are like, yes, it looks like that you have the knowledge, but do you have the 1, 3, 5 years of experience? And that's where people go like, well, I was studying. They're like, yeah. And again, to on a point that I made, uh, a degree, a certification, a certificate, whatever, what it proves to an employer is that you have the knowledge. What they really want is for you to prove that you have been able to apply that knowledge in some way or form. And that is the experience. So for you, if the experience, or for anybody for that matter, if the experience is being that barrier, uh, I think that what you, especially for something in computer science, you need to start creating a portfolio. All right. You may not have paid experience, but this is where internships, and we discussed this, they are not easy to get into, but internships are probably the best way to gain experience. Some of them are paid, some of them are unpaid, but and even some internships will give you a way into the company. Also, volunteer work is very important. At the end of the day, it's like when you can talk about, yes, I have used this knowledge that I have acquired and have built this. For computer science, I think that depending on what you want to do, if you're going to be a programmer, it's good to have a portfolio, do something in GitHub. And so you can say, you can bring to the table, okay, no, I have not been paid, but I have developed this thing, this thing, this thing. So that is how you prove that you have some kind of experience. And so I think that's what's going to be. And when we talk a little bit about resources as well, I think that networking is huge. So for you or for anybody else who's a recent graduate or he's trying or they're trying to get into the field, creating and building a network is super, super important. And LinkedIn is a great resource. A lot of people have said, I don't have a LinkedIn page because I don't have it. Doesn't matter. Put that you're a student, put a LinkedIn page. What that does is allows you to, start creating a network with people that are in the position or in the area that you want to do. So that's a good way. Networking is definitely super important. That experience piece is important. And yeah, we're going to be talking about when we go to the resources. I'm going to recommend a couple of things, not only to Sylvia, but for everybody else. I hope that I answered that question.
She did respond. Thank you. Yeah, internship seems to be reserved for people pursuing or graduating with bachelors nowadays.
Uh, yes and no. Like I said, I am going to be very honest. Trying to get an internship, if you do enough research, we just had actually last week here at the hub, we had the Navy the labs coming here to talk about internships specifically for college students, and they do have internships for people with associate's degrees. It's just a matter of looking for them, and just when you're applying to a job, expect to be denied. So expect to apply for 10 and maybe if you're lucky to get one or two offers. All right. So that I know is not easy. And I'm not trying to scare anybody, but at the same token, I'm not trying to tell anybody that this is easy. You're gonna have to put your work. There are internships out there. I don't have any specific ones for you in the area that you're trying to do, but I'm sure there are. You're just gonna have to probably just cast your net a little bit wider. But yeah, yeah, yes, and yep.
Yes, the skills that the last one was machine learning and AI. You said there are types of AI. Could you explain that to me?
So first of all, let's start by defining what AI is. So AI is really a misnomer in the sense that we at the moment we don't really have AI. AI stands for artificial intelligence. What we have today is mostly machine learning. Okay. So machine learning is a way to get to AI. We really don't have true AIs in the sense that our intelligence means something more than what the current models are capable to do. With that, let me try to explain that a little bit further. They are very good at doing something or a couple of things really, really well. For the most part, these tools that we have today are one trick ponies. Basically, they're really good at doing something. And what they're really good at is at pattern recognition. What they're really good at is at looking at vast quantities of data that you feed them. You feed them the data, and they are as knowledgeable as the data that you feed them. What they're really good at is like they look at that data and they start looking for patterns, they start looking for recommendations. So that's what they're really good at. They're really able to crunch large amounts of data. That's why they are called, a lot of these AIs are called LLMs or large language models because they really go deep into all the data sources that they get and start trying to look at patterns and try to make, oh, okay, they start looking at, oh, this looks like a pattern. So they start making the recommendations based on that. Now, with that said, I think that we've been using these AI tools for a while now without really being calling them that. Google, for example, it is a form of that. What Google is a search engine. Again, looks at vast quantities of data. And if you ask Google, can you tell me whatever, whatever? And Google looks at vast quantities of data and spits an answer or 1,000 answers, depending on what it is. So that is basically just a search engine. It looks at data and spits an answer after you ask them something. But the AI that we're talking about that is becoming more and more mainstream these days, for example, ChatGPT is something different. It's called generative AI because they generate something. So you ask them to do something for you. You said, ChatGPT, can you write me a 300-word essay on the French Revolution. So they generate something. Okay, it's not just giving you an answer. It's different from Google because you can say, hey, Google, when the French Revolution started? And it's going to say, yeah, in 1789. It started with the taking of the Bastille, whatever, whatever. So I think and also other AI tools are more specific to a job. For example, when we talked about for data, these are tools like Power BI. Power BI is a Microsoft product that is starting to incorporate the intelligence. Basically, it is a tool that you could use it without the AI, but when you put it together with the AI, you're able to enhance the capability of the product. So I know that that's probably
No, no, no. Another part of it is we have Gemini, we have Sori, we have Alexis, we have different, and there are different predictive tools based on information that is being supplied or they're searching for. So how when you're saying AI, in what form of AI? Is it the early? Are we in the? We're in an artificial intelligence revolution right now in terms of the whole country, the whole world. How do you move from where we are into providing services from either a data point of view or just providing services to people who are looking? Turn the light off and it's off, or I want to hear this music and it comes on.
thank you for thank you. So the AI, it's just these tools, we're starting to use them in different fields. And that was what I was trying to illustrate. To answer your question, what is being applied, like I was trying to say, is like we are using some of these tools in conjunction with existing tools to enhance their capabilities. For example, let me give you an example. We've been using here at the college and everybody else, a lot of companies are using Office 365. So exactly, the whole thing. But recently, just of last year, now there's an AI assistant that got built in into Office 365 to enhance things. So everybody's familiar with Outlook and what Outlook does. But now with the AI thing, with Gemini built in, now you can say, Gemini, write me this email. So this is what all these tools, both generative AI and the other forms of AI, are being used to enhance and expand the capabilities of existing tools. And that's what I said. For example, with Power BI. Power BI has existed for a few years now, but now they have incorporated Gemini into it. So one of the things that, okay, this is a great example. I was talking about SQL and how you need to learn SQL because that's how you talk to databases. With Power BI and all these data visualization tools, you need to know how to talk to them. But now maybe through AI, you can ask them to produce that report in plain English through the AI and say, hey, can you give me this report? And the AI will translate the plain English language into SQL or other things. Okay. So does that answer your question a little bit better? So no problem. Excellent. No, good, very good questions. Very good questions. Good. All right, let's move on to cloud. All right, so cloud, and like I mentioned on week one, this is another area that is growing a lot. And why is that? We mentioned on week one, I believe that in the slide, if I quoted correctly, that over 50% of organizations right now use more than one cloud service, and the need of cloud is just increasing across the board. Why is that? We said that, first of all, what is cloud? Cloud, let's define what cloud is. Cloud is any type of service that is outside your organization, okay? We all use cloud, and I'm going to give you one example. For example, we all use Netflix and then, Amazon Music or anything like that. So you can watch those movies, you can listen to that music. None of that is in your phone, in your computer, in your network. That is in Amazon, that's in Netflix servers. What you're doing is you're accessing that content through a web browser or an application, correct? So basically, cloud services, and that's the same for companies. Basically, companies, is a cloud is something that it could be an application, it could be a storage, it could be a network, it could be a whole, it could be virtual computers, it could be any type of service that is not in their organization. Basically, you're renting. You are renting either access to the content, you are renting capabilities from these companies, etc. Okay, so why has that become so big? What I try to explain is that the model that we had in IT 20 years ago was like an organization had to buy their own hardware, had to train or hire their own technicians to run these particular applications. And that has a couple of drawbacks. First of all, it's costly. Second of all, you require expertise to even assemble a team. Third of all, it's it's not very flexible in the sense that you have to predict how much power, how much storage you're going to need, right? Let me give you an example. Here at Montgomery College, when I started 18 years ago, we used to have our own email service. We used to have Exchange, and we had Exchange administrators, we had Exchange servers, we had storage space to get all that email. At that point, we were not able to offer email to the students because, again, we were running it ourselves. At some point, we were like, wow, this is, and you know, as we decided to offer it to the students, we're like, we don't have the capacity. We would have had to buy 10 times the amount of storage space and servers and people just to do this. And then students, as you know, they come and go. They start a semester, then they leave. Sometimes it comes. So one of the benefits of the cloud, that's when we switch to Office 365, because with Office 365, we pay per user per month. So let's say that they pay for my for employee accounts. I don't know. It used to feel like $35 a month. So and then again, the other piece is like with the cloud services, they are elastic. You can say, Amazon, can you give me 500 more users? And they will say, no problem. And then you can call them 2 weeks after and say, you know what, can you reduce 500 users? And say, no problem. So it's quite elastic. So, and then again, you don't have to invest in the expertise. And like I mentioned, now that IT is a business function, you have to have some kind of IT, and not everybody has the expertise or the know-how to put together an IT team. Let's think about like a small mom and pop shop, right? 20 years ago, they could have gone by with just one computer for inventory, and maybe they were thinking about doing email. There was no, we need to be on social media. There was none of that stuff. Now that all that is needed, even to run a food truck. So with that said, companies are in need of all these services that these cloud providers provide, okay? So that's the preface and why this is growing so much. Let's go to the next slide. And let's talk about the common functions. Again, after everything that I talked about, so the first thing is, okay, so the company decided, okay, we need to do this service. We can no longer have our own email servers. We need to get somebody else. And then, so there's a couple of different options there. You can either do Office 365, which is what most people do, but also Google has the Google Suite, right? And a lot of education institutions have done as well. So the first thing, determine the need and determine what is the best product for your organization, all right? Then you need to manage because now your data is going to be in a lot of different places. So going back to the example here, now the servers that we used to have, our storage servers, our Exchange servers, now we don't have that. That data is now on Microsoft's servers, and they can be in Texas, they can be in Ireland, they can be in the other side of the world, exactly, or they could be little pieces here and there. So with that said, we also have to use other data providers. So there's some stuff in AWS. So now your data, you have data all over the place. You have data within your network. You have data in AWS. You have data in Azure or Azure in Microsoft. So you have to manage the data across multiple cloud environments. Then you need to maintain that communication. You see, to the user, this should be transparent. The user doesn't care where your data is or where the data is. What they want is like when they're trying to access a document, they don't care if it's in AWS and they don't want to know that. A lot of people most people drive cars and they don't know how the engine is working. And that's fine. They don't want to know. They don't need to know. The car just needs to go, right? The same thing. So you need to maintain those data functions in the cloud, and that has to be transparent to the users. And last but not least, ensure that the system, service components, and code run smoothly. And not only that, but also they are secure. All right. And that is huge. That is huge. I didn't include this in this slide, but it's worth mentioning because most of these cloud services, Amazon Web Services or AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, Oracle Cloud, all these services are for the most part pretty much very secure themselves. And then, but how come people's getting hacked all the time in these things? Is not because it's because the organizations didn't secure their tenants properly. So, and think about that word tenant. Okay, so when you are having a tenancy in AWS, it's like you're renting an apartment, right? You go rent an apartment, the apartment complex. They give you a key for the door. They try to secure. I don't know, maybe it's a gated community, but if you leave the door unlocked, is the apartment complex fault that you get robbed? No, it's your fault. You left the door unlocked. Okay, so that's kind of like the analogy I'm trying to make here. It's not that these systems are unsecure themselves. It's like they haven't been secured properly by the company. They haven't um, um, implemented authentication systems to make sure that only the people that are supposed to get into that data get into that data. So that is the other piece. And this is where these things start, like I mentioned last week, start meshing up, because this is where cyber security departments start. How can I secure the data that we have in the cloud, right? What is our liability, et cetera. So with that said, let's go to the next slide. And we are looking at a couple of job titles here. So cloud architect, cloud specialist, cloud engineer, and the last one, oldie but a goodie, again, your systems engineer. So the systems engineer, they're still there in a lot of organizations. They are your cloud person. Let me tell you what a system engineer does. So that is, again, when all our systems were within the organization, when we were running our own Exchange server, it was our system engineers and our system administrators who were running that team, right? So now we still, yes, we outsource that part, but somebody still needs to administrate that. Somebody needs to secure it, right? So that position is within, and in smaller companies, again, you may not have a cloud specialist. It may be your system engineer that manages both the in-house data and the outsourced data and the services, all right? So let's talk about the cloud specialist. The cloud specialist is the entry-level position, again, in this area, and that's the one that we are going to be exploring. Now, cloud architect, cloud engineers, again, these are the people just like in the civilian world, if you want to. An architect is the person that designs, the building, but they need to know. They need to know what are the possibilities of the materials. They cannot say, "Hey, build me this whole building just in glass." The engineer is gonna. That's not possible. You cannot put beams made of glass. So the architect needs to understand the capabilities of current technologies, right? And the engineer is the person who builds them. All right. And that goes for like all the different things that we've been talking about. But let's go to the next slide and let's talk about the cloud specialist, specifically the salaries. All right. Like I said in the last one, again, look at the median, look at the distribution. The distribution on this one is a little skewed and it's a little weird because you have a lot of people on the entry level part, more on the left. But look at the right, $205,000. Wow, right? So, but it's very small. So, but as you can see, the average is about $90,000 a year. Again, because this position, cloud specialist, can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different companies, depending on the company that you work. A cloud specialist may be the person that manages your clouds, so it's basically a system administrator with additional job responsibilities. So if that is the case, that $90,000 in this area per year, it's good. But if you are really, really a person that has other certifications or you are really managing your tenants in these particular areas, that's more in the 100,000 plus range a year. Okay. Now, as you can see, there's a ton of people in the $40,000 range. Again, I don't think that happens in this area, but this is basically people that are like system administrators that maybe also manage like the Office 365 for a very small company. Again, I don't think nobody in this area makes $40,000 doing that. I would not do that for less than probably 60 at least. But anyhow, let's go to the next slide. Let's talk about projections, okay? So again, another 10% growth, again, is not a huge growth, but again, that's in this particular area. Remember that when we say data, we're talking about those data architects and those data engineers. Those are the people who make the really good money, but to get to that, you first need to start here, right? So about 83,000 jobs in the next decade for this particular, for cloud or systems specialists or cloud specialists the next decade, and about 125,000 jobs in this area available right now. All right, so now let's look at the, let's talk about the skills. Next slide, please. All right, so this, after everything that I've said, this is going to make a little bit more sense, I hope. So as you can see in the second one, there's still the database management and SQL, skill. So yes, a lot of people that are now cloud and cloud specialists came from the database administrator, from the data world as well. But the first one is quite important, cloud service platform knowledge. So what does that mean? I've been talking a lot about different cloud vendors. Especially the big dog, if you wish, the biggest name for cloud has been for the past 20 years is AWS or Amazon Web Services. Microsoft was a distant second until recently, where the Azure has now caught up really close to AWS, and they were able to do that because one of the decisions, that the best decisions that Microsoft has made in the past 20 years is that they started putting all their services in Azure. So now everything Microsoft exists only in Azure. So, and that's the reason why. So, but let's talk about, there's not only a difference in, oh, you need to understand what lives here and here, but unfortunately, these things, you will think that cloud will all be the same across the board. No. Microsoft does cloud the Microsoft way. AWS does cloud their own way, and they have their own terminology. For example, one of the main components in AWS is the S3 buckets. And I don't want to get too much into that, but that's not something that exists, like, let's say, in Azure. Something similar to it. But again, is that they do cloud in different ways, okay? So knowing the difference and maybe specializing in one or the other is very important, okay? So again, we're going back to programming languages, and Python makes another appearance here. R makes another appearance here, and JavaScript. As the name implies, JavaScript is actually not a programming language and has nothing to do with Java. I still don't understand why they call it JavaScript. JavaScript is a pure scripting language, has nothing to do with Java. But all these three languages can be used for scripting. And again, scripts are very important for cloud, especially when you need to secure your data or you need to work on the data on the cloud, right? This is important. The next one is important. APIs, or application programming interfaces. What are these things? Basically, I talked about how your data is now in different areas in your own systems. You have it now in different cloud systems. How they talk to each other? They talk to each other through APIs. APIs are little applications. They're little connectors that run underneath that allows the data in AWS talk to the data, like, let's say, in Azure. So that's what it is. DevOps. DevOps, it's a short for development operations, and this is actually comes mostly, or it started rather, in the development world, especially in like software development. But it's in reality what it is not is a methodology. Is a methodology on how to implement projects. So the that methodology can be used and is used a lot when you are doing cloud development. So that's why it's in there. Now let's talk about Linux. We talked about Linux last week a lot, especially when we were talking about cybersecurity and networking. Why? And again, for the people that is here for the first time, Linux it's very important in IT, specifically in those two areas, and now in this one as well, because a lot of servers run on Linux. Okay, so different Linux distributions, but once you know one or two Linux distributions, you pretty much know them all because they all are just shells on top of the Linux kernel, and we talked about this last week. Last but not least, security concepts. Again, uh, this is where the lines blur, cybersecurity. But even if you're not in cybersecurity, but you are in charge of one of these tenants or systems that you're using in the cloud, you need to understand how to secure them. I just explained to you with the analogy of like you're renting an apartment, and so you got to make sure that the door is locked and only the people that is supposed to access that apartment has a copy of that key, and I have a way to knowing who entered last. Okay. So yeah, and again, this list is not all inclusive, but there could be other things, but this is what I've seen. Definitely things that are needed. Let's go back to the next slide, and that's gonna go really quick because we're gonna talk about the baseline soft skills, and surprise, surprise, they're exactly the same as the other ones because the same things are needed. The same exact things are needed. It's just a different application of those skills. And before I move on, a lot of people may be wondering, okay, I know how to acquire technical skills, right? How do I acquire these skills? In reality, most people, these are skills, first of all, that you need to work on them. You continue learning and growing them as you go. So, but the most important thing is like most of you already have a lot of these skills. You just have to think. Even if you're coming from a different area than IT, you must have used these skills in another application. And it's just a way that you can put in your resume, yes, I know how to do this, or I have these skills because I've done this, and this. Again, um, this is a little off topic, but your resume should just be a way of opening a dialogue with the or inciting the hiring partner enough to give you an interview so you can further explain what you were trying to say. So again, you can put in your resume, yes, I have these skills, and then you need to talk about how did you acquire them. Okay, that was a little bit off topic, but I think it was kind of important. Let's go to the next slide, please. All right, so a couple of things. First of all, we're going to do the same thing, a little bit of reflection here. What was covered in this section, what stood out for you, and are you interested in a career in cloud technologies? We're going to allow for a couple of minutes if there are any questions. And then after that, we're going to go in a small break, and then we will come back for the rest of the presentation. Any questions here in person or online regarding this? Not? All right, then let's move to the next slide. Let's go on break. It's 7:09. We're gonna pause the recording. We will come back in 5 minutes. So 7:14, we will continue the presentation. Thank you. Right into the next part of the presentation. So we are going to go next, and we're going to talk about careers in web and app development. And like I explained, okay, so, and we're gonna see in the next slide, the reason that I put this together, they can technically be two different areas, but the basically the functions are very much the same as we are going to see in the next slide. What is going to be different, yes, next slide, please. What is going to be different after we talked about the common functions is the skills, the hard skills are gonna differ a little bit, but the common functions are the same. And again, Doesn't matter if you're developing, designing, or creating or coding a website or an application, you need to meet with clients to discuss needs. So is this a brand new website? Is it a brand new application? Or are we just trying to modify an existing website, an existing application? Again, so that's modify software programs, or it could be modifying a website. The third one is design or create applications, systems, or websites. And that is done through writing programming code on both. Okay, before we move on, I want to make a pause because a lot of people confuse and confound a developer with a programmer and with they're not the same thing. Okay, so what is the difference? Okay, a programmer is, like the word says, is somebody that is very familiar, or a coder is very familiar with that particular coding language or that particular programming language. So they are able to write applications, websites, whatever in that language. A developer is different, and I'm going to tell you why. There's always two sides for both web and application development. There are two sides. There's the engineering side, right? Which is what we just talked about. The programmer, the coder does the engineering. But there's the other side of the equation, which is the design. Somebody has to design that website, that application. What does design mean? Design means a couple of different things. And this is why here at the Ignite Hub, we actually offer boot camps. We're going to try to offer them again in the spring for adults. And one is for intro to coding. So we try to tell people that is interested in the programming side and the engineering part. Okay, and then we have the web application design. I'm sorry, application design bootcamp. Because again, what is the design means? Design means, first of all, coming up with the idea. Okay, I want to create an application for that does X, Y, Z. And there is also, this application is going to serve these different populations. This application is going to look like this. This is what it's going to look like. This is the functionality that it's going to have. Again, think about the architect and the engineer that we talked about. So the designer will be more of the architect. The engineer will be the person that actually builds it. And then if you're doing both sides of the equation, you are a developer. And developers always make more money than either the designer or the programmer by themselves, because the developer is the person who understands the whole cycle and knows both sides of the equation. I hope that makes sense. All right. So with that said, let's go and actually, before we move on, just to expand that point a little bit further on, when you are doing web development, there is basically, there are two types of designers, of developers. There are like front end and then back end. What does that mean? So the front end people is the people that actually designs the website that you reach through your browser, right? This is, they design how you interact, what colors, what fonts, what functionality it has. But then that needs to connect to something in the back, right? Either is your bank, or if it's something else, or if it's Netflix, it's going to connect to a database, it's going to connect to a cloud application or system, whatever. So the people that develop that other part is called the back end. And if you do both, and there's people that specialize only either in front end, or people that specialize only in back end. If you do both, that is what is called a full stack developer. Okay, I don't know if you have heard before. So now let's go to the example job titles. Again, so you have software development, computer programmer, web designer, web developer, coder. I think I more or less explained the difference between these different ones. Okay, so I believe that, again, I think that I believe that developer, let's go to the next slide, is the title that we use. Okay, so on this one, we actually didn't use the entry-level job, because the entry-level job will be considered either the web or app designer or the web or app programmer, right? We rather chose to talk about the app. And this is an app, not web developer, but the salaries are the same. As you can see, 109, and that sounds, especially for this area, a little low. A full developer, a full out developer, somebody has knowledge on both sides, should be making over $120,000 a year minimum. As you can see, it goes really high. Now, if you're just an app designer, an app developer, or a programmer, now that goes a little bit more into the 80, 90 to start, okay? Let's look at the next slide and let's see what the job outlook looks like. Okay, big area of growth. Again, 21%. Why? Applications are still on websites is the way that we interact these days. I think that probably 90, if not more percent of everything that we do these days is done either to apps or to websites, correct? So that's why companies require that they have an app. And remember also that let's say that you are a new company that you're trying to offer a new product. There's also not only that you need one app, because these days now you're going to need maybe one app for Windows, maybe one app for Mac, maybe you're going to need one app for iOS, one app for Android. So sometimes you need more than one app, right? And also when you're developing the website, it's the website has to work in all the different browsers. It has to look the same in Chrome and in Safari and in Edge and DuckDuckGo. So that's why there's a big need for people that is able to design and program these different things. About 284,000 new jobs over the next decade for developers. About 280 current job openings in the US. So lots of opportunity here. And this is the reason why computer science is still one of the most pursued degrees in within the IT field. Actually, I think it's still the number one. I think cybersecurity must be second now. Information systems gotta be like right. Yes, that's the reason why, because there's a lot of jobs. That's why computer science is still, I believe, the number one degree within the IT field that is being pursued, because people want to get into this. I think that cybersecurity now is going like really in second. Information systems is like third, but this is the reason why. I hope that Sylvia, you now have a little bit or a better understanding, and this is going to become even more apparent when we talked about the specific skill set. Okay, so let's go next slide. So this is the technical skills for an app developer. Okay, we're going to talk about app developer first. Some of these are going to cross over to the next slide where we're going to be talking about web developers, but they are a little different. This is where these two paths differ a little bit, is in the technical skill set, all right? So here, and both of them are going to need to know for programming languages. Again, that's where your computer science degree comes up with. But there's going to be a difference for an app developer versus a web developer. What languages are you going to be using, right? So obviously, if you're going to be developing apps, you're going to be using languages like C++, C#, C, Swift, Python, Java. Java is a big one, especially for web developers too. Python, yes, like I mentioned, Python is still a programming language for certain applications. So those are languages depending on the application, right? The other piece is going to be UI or user interface design, all right? And again, that is designing what the application looks like, the navigation, the functionality, the colors, the fonts, the animations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I already talked about the back-end computing, so knowledge of that. How do you connect that application to those databases, to the bank, to whatever it needs to connect, right? Cross-platform development. Again, I just mentioned that because you may need to develop an application for iOS in Swift and another application for Android. And for that, basically, you're going to be using Java and, in the Android, the way that they develop the stuff. So then again, if you are going to be a developer, you are going to need to have knowledge in product management and business management. How many people do you know that has come up with a great idea and they have not been able to market it, again, because they don't have any business experience, right? The same can be said for like how many people open restaurants and they failed. Restaurants is one of the businesses that has the highest failure rate. Again, because it's people that is passionate about cooking and about food and about serving people, but they know little or nothing about marketing and business, and this is why this business usually fails. Agile development. Again, we talked about DevOps in the last section. So agile development is another methodology, and like the name implies, is agile. There's a lot of methodologies within software development. There's a whole area of this called the SDLC, or Software Development Lifecycle. It's definitely a lot more than what we're discussing here. But Agile is a methodology that has become very popular, again, because like the name implies, it you can be developing different parts of the application in parallel and then kind of assemble it together. The traditional methodologies actually call for example, the waterfall, and you can, think about a waterfall is basically you have to be following steps, and that usually takes longer. While agile, you can develop different parts of the application at the same time. So, and that's why it has become very popular. And then testing and troubleshooting. Testing especially is huge, and troubleshooting. Uh, I'm going to tell you right now that most programmers, most coders, and more developers will tell you that they spend 90% of their time testing and debugging. That's what it is, because writing the application, designing is all fun, it's all good, but the actual, the groundwork here is that you need to be testing and testing it, and then continue improving it, right? And troubleshooting. So that's very important in this particular area. Let's go to the next one. And those are the technical skills for web developers. We talked about this already, and I think I jumped the gun. So we talked about the front end coding and the back end coding, and this is why you need different languages. So if you're doing developing the front end, that's where you're developing the website. That's the again, that's what you access to the browser, and to develop those, you need to know HTML, CSS or cascading style sheets, JavaScript. All those are very important, and some other technologies as well. But for the back end coding, that's what you need: your Java, your Python, PHP, and your Ruby on Rails and stuff like that. So different stuff. And again, that's why the difference between front end, back end, you can specialize in either or both, and then that will be a full stack developer, right? On this one, again, very similar to the last one, that you need to develop that interface is the same thing. User interface, UI, and UX design. Because here on the web, just like also on the apps, is not only about the functionality of the app or the website, but is the user experience, right? So how many times have you gone to, and especially government websites are famous for this, they're horrible to use, right? They're like old, outdated. The navigation is not intuitive. So you're not only, designing what you see, but how you interact with it, making it that it's, and this is what Apple, and again, I'm not Apple fanboy, but Apple really excels at. They really say, how can we make this really simple for anybody to use? All right. So that's the user experience. And again, security and data protection, super important here as well. And testing and troubleshooting again. Does that make sense? I mean, there's very similar, but at the same time, it's a little different. And then we're going to go to our true and tried next slide, which is your softline based skills. Same thing. Yes, sir.
We're doing the slide in the salary. That was the web developer,
Right.
but there's no salary.
Well, I'm sorry, there was no, because again, a web developer and an app developer, they're pretty much around the same thing. Yeah, basically it's in the same ballpark. Because as I said, it's just like a little different of the skill set for the hard skills is a little different, because you have to specialize again in particular things. But at the end of the day, the design and the process is very similar. So that's why also the compensation is kind of similar. Right. So, and again, same soft skills, the same as we've been talking about. Let's move on. Let's go to our discussion. Again, what was covered in this section, let's reflect a little bit. What stood out for you? And are you interested in a career as a web or app developer? I also would like to open the floor for any questions that we have about this specific area. Yes, please.
We had one question online from Sylvia in relation to the previous question. Yes, I am aiming at web dev, if not full stack right now. Does AWS cross over to this position?
AWS.
Mhm.
Yes. So yes, that's a very good question. So that is another thing that actually web designers are now, and I should have put that on the slide, but remember that now a lot of data resides in AWS, and there's actually, as we're going to talk in the next section, we're going to be talking about certifications. There's a specific certification in AWS for developers. So yes, it does cross over, and it's going to be, again, it depends on the company, and it depends, it may not be something that is required right away, but as you grow into the role, definitely is going to be, and again, I cannot stress enough, not only that, but the security concepts, right? Because when you're designing, doesn't matter if it's an app or a website, and thank you for that question, because that reminds me something that I mentioned last week. Um, Something that has changed in the past 10 years or so is that in the past, we used to build a computer, a system, an application, a website first, and then thinking about how to secure it, right? That's no longer the case. The paradigm has changed completely. Now, when you're building an app, a system, a network, an application, a website, you have to start thinking about security from the get-go, because you cannot effectively secure any of these things after the fact these days. All right. And in order to do that, you need to also understand what the potential risks are. So that is why I put on those slides that knowledge of security is important. So yes, very good question. Hope that I answered it. Any other questions? Nope. Well, let's go to the next section, because we still have a lot to discuss. Let's talk about, and that was a question in the break about degrees versus certifications. Again, a little bit of a repeat for the people that has attended in the past couple of weeks, but we're going to try to go ahead, and let's go to the next slide. So degrees versus certifications. First of all, IT is a dominantly experience and skill-based industry, and I already mentioned that. So they want you to have the skills, the knowledge, and the experience, right? With that said, uh, about 25% of people in IT do not have college degrees, but that comes with that asterisk. Why is that? You may not need a degree to get into the entry level positions in the field, but you are definitely going to need a degree to progress to higher level positions, depending on in the different areas, and definitely for management. So it's nothing wrong. A lot of people start with a degree. Nothing wrong with starting with a degree. I start with a degree. Certifications are a good way to start in the industry, all right? But, and also a lot of times certifications complement degrees, okay? And that's what we're gonna be talking in the next few minutes. So a degree, again, can provide a breadth of exposure to various aspects to IT. Like I mentioned in the last couple of weeks, what a degree proves to an employer is that couple of things. First of all, that you have a rounded knowledge, that you have taken core classes in that particular area, and then you have taken all other classes, so that you are a competent professional. That doesn't mean that you are prepared for a job. The second thing that it proves to prospective employers, like, this person is capable to start and end a long and complicated project, which is obtaining a degree. All right. That doesn't mean that it's proving that you're ready for the job. And this is why we talked about that barrier, that the degree itself does not land you a job. They want that degree or that certification pair with some experience. What? The degree or the certification proves you have the knowledge. The experience proves that you have applied that knowledge in some way, shape, or form. So certifications are, again, means that you have the knowledge, but they are a lot more narrow, okay? certification basically proves to the employer this person has knowledge in this particular area or for this particular product or for this particular service. If we go to the next slide, and I think that go ahead, please, next slide. I think that this is important. And again, this is a repeat for the people that has accompanied us before, but I think it's worth mentioning because this is very important when it comes to certification. So first of all, first bullet, IT certifications are often listed as either required or preferred on job postings and career positions, okay? So they are. We're gonna come back to the second bullet in a minute. Third bullet, IT certifications can be vendor specific or vendor neutral, okay? So what does that mean? Last week when we were talking about support and networking and cyber, that was a perfect example of CompTIA, and we even talked about who CompTIA is because their certifications, A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus are considered entry-level certifications in the fields of support, networking, and cybersecurity. These are vendor neutral, meaning that what they cover is for all vendors. It's not specific to any particular vendor or product, okay? But they can and could be paired with vendor-specific certifications. I mentioned one last week, for example, which is CCNA. CCNA is Cisco Certified Network Associate. And why is a good idea to pair it with the Network Plus? Because Network Plus proves that you have knowledge about computer networks, okay? You may not have the degree in information systems or networking, but you have that. So the Network Plus proves that you understand computer networks. CCNA proves that you know how to program, deploy, patch, program different Cisco networking devices, okay? And again, Cisco has like 80% of the market in network hardware, but there's other vendors. Also, but what I was trying to say here is that they complement each other sometimes. Okay.
I got my company, then I had to go get my Apple OIS developer and my Google work.
Right.
Workforce. It's just a lot of stuff.
Right. So thank you for sharing that because sometimes again, those vendor neutral certifications are really good. I don't want to use the word replacement, but a good stand-in for degrees because again, it is a good way to prove that you have that knowledge. And then the vendor specifics, those are the ones that are sometimes required on job postings.
Yeah, I had to get
The-
in order to get the degree, I had to get the come first.
Right.
It's a important degree.
Oh, okay, great. So, and then let's go to the other certifications can cover general areas of IT. Let's go back, I'm sorry. Yeah, general areas of IT or qualified professionals in specific skills. So let's go back to the second bullet point. And again, this is a repeat, but I think it's worth mentioning. So how do you get a certification and how do you maintain a certification? And when does it make sense to have a certification? Thank you for what you said, because that really is a great segue what we said. So how do you obtain a certification? For most certifications, you just need to pass the exam, all right? And we're gonna go back on how you prepare for the exam. So you go, you make an appointment, and then you pass the exam. So there's a fee for the exam, and that exam could be anywhere from like $100 and something to over $1,000 for certain certifications. Those GIAC certifications are super expensive. So what happens if you don't pass the test? Do you get your money back? Nope. Nope. Do you get a second chance for free? Nope. What you get is like they usually tell you that you need to wait for 2 or 3 weeks before you attempt to retake the exam. They will tell you in what areas you were most deficient in, and they will give you within a certain time frame a discount for your second try. Okay, now you passed the exam. You're certified, right? Yes, great. Now, is that forever? Nope. No, certifications usually last 2-3 years, usually. And so what happens after the 3 years? First of all, before even the 3 years, you also have to pay a maintenance fee, an annual maintenance fee, which could be anywhere from $75 to a few $100. And what does this give you? Well, this gives you access to some resources which are going to be important for the next point. Uh, After the 3 years, your certification, if you want to continue having it, which again, you may not, depending, and we're going to talk about the reason why in a moment. Let's say that you want to continue having this certification. So you have two choices. You can either retake that exam, or B, which is better, is like during those 3 years, you have to accumulate what they call CEUs or CAUs, whatever. So basically, these are educational credits. And depending on the certification, they might ask you for 90, 120, 150, whatever it is. And there's different ways to acquire this. You can acquire this by getting into a degree program and having taken classes directed to that field. You can use those. You can attend industry conferences. You can watch. This is the easiest way, and this is what your yearly fee pays, is give you access to like webinars and other resources that you can watch these webinars, and then they can count towards those CEUs. So that's how you maintain this thing. Now, let's go back to how do you prepare, and then we're going to go back to when and how, when it makes sense, and what certifications make sense. So how do you prepare to that exam? I actually say there's 4 ways to prepare for that exam. You may feel that you have the knowledge. You just go ahead and do a little bit of research and say, okay, this exam is gonna cover these sections. You say, okay, I'm very knowledgeable in these sections. I'm just gonna go and attend the exam. That's one way. Don't recommend it unless you are quite sure of what you're getting into. Second one will be you self-prepared for the exam. Basically, you buy the book, the preparation, the official or non-official, and then you study it. And then when you think you're ready, you may want to take a test exam. Some of them are available online. And after you score more than 80%, you say, okay, I'm ready. I'm going to go ahead. That's good. But then these two options usually work for people that already have the knowledge in the area. What if you don't have any knowledge in the area, but you want to get this certification? Then you have a couple of different options, actually 3 options. Number one option is that you take a preparation course, okay? And it comes in 3 different flavors. The one that I recommend the most is that you take it at a community college. Doesn't have to be Montgomery College, even though we're going to talk about that, but it has why in a community college? Most community colleges have a workforce development component, basically non-credit classes, and a lot of them offer preparation courses for certifications. As I said before, certifications are given by certification bodies, not colleges or universities, or sometimes the vendors like Microsoft, etc. So yes, why community college? Because A is, if you're trying to acquire the knowledge, A is going to be a longer time. So you're going to be able to digest and learn a little bit more. Second, because it's going to be the cheaper of the 3 options that I'm going to mention. It's probably going to be in the hundreds of dollars range. Second option will be that you take a preparation course in one of these technical institutes. Nothing against them, like Lincoln Tech or whatever. If it works for you, great. The thing on those is going to be more expensive. It's going to be usually in the $1,000 to $2,000 range type of situation, and usually the classes are a little bit more compressed. They try to 4 weeks. So if you have some knowledge and you are kind of pressed to get the certification, this could be a good way for you. If you're trying to learn, probably the community college preparation course will be the best. And there's the third option, which I call the nuclear option, which are boot camps. Boot camps, I only recommend for people that are actually in the industry or in the area and they know they have a pretty good foundational or base knowledge on it. The boot camps are, number one, short. As the name implies, they're 4 or 5 days and they're super, they go super fast. So in 32, 40 hours, they just dump you all this knowledge on you. And so they go 100 miles an hour. And number two, they're super expensive. They usually go for $3,000 to $5,000. The good thing about this is like sometimes they include a voucher. I have done this myself. And again, I did it because I felt confident that I have enough knowledge. I just needed like a refresher and I just like a knowledge dump and tell me that what they're going to be testing on the exam, what the exam is going to look like. and give me my voucher. So it makes sense for certain people. So which one makes sense for you depends on your situation. Now let's talk about when makes sense for certification. So certifications have to be uh, something that is helping you in your career quest right now. So when you are looking to obtain a certification, it should be a certification that is going to serve you for the next 3 to 5 years, right? After that, you may get a different certification or you may go for a degree. So you may choose to let that certification expire. All right. I've seen people that go and get 5 different certifications in 5 different things, and they think that this actually it makes them look good to an employer. That doesn't make them look good, because what I'm seeing here is like, okay, so this person has a certification in app development and a certification in cloud and a certification in, so it's all over the place. Doesn't make sense. So certification has to be complementary to either your degree, your knowledge, or other certifications that you have. That's why I mentioned the Network Plus and the CCNA. Those two go well. They go like peanut butter and jelly, kind of. All right, but so if it does it make sense for you on your career on the next thing that you try? Because again, they cost money to prepare. They cost money to take the exam. They cost money to yearly fee, and and they take your time as well. So they have to make sense for your career path right now. All right. With that said, we're running a little, so we're going to continue. Okay. So let's talk about certifications for these particular fields. All right. So for data certifications, and again, we are talking the CompTIA Data Plus. All right. So that's a vendor neutral certification. Again, what does the Data Plus shows to an employer? That you understand how data is done, basically, regardless of the product that you are using. And when I mean how data is done, it's like you understand data mining, you understand data analysis, you understand what these different things are, how data sets are built, et cetera, et cetera. You're not an expert in any of these things, but you understand how data analytics work, right? The other certifications, the 3 next certifications, are vendor specific. For example, Power BI Data Analyst Associate is issued by Microsoft. And again, it proves that you know how to use Power BI for data visualization. Tableau, again, depends, and this is where you have to do your homework, because the CompTIA Data Plus will be a good way to show, if you don't have a degree, that you understand data. But then depending on the company that you want to work, is this company going to be using Power BI or Tableau, or maybe complemented with that AWS data analytics? All right. So that's basically what I was trying to say. All right, let's go to the next one. Cloud. And cloud, as you can see, is 100% pretty much, even though now there are certifications by Google as well, okay? That because Google Cloud is becoming and more and more, it's coming up. And also there are Azure certifications as well. But yeah, AWS still has the biggest market share. And then again, as you can see, there's a lot of different certifications for AWS, depending. So the beginner is the cloud practitioner. This is your entry level for AWS. And then you can start going into the different ones. So certified solutions architect, certified SOSOP, and certified developer. That's the one that I was referring to, Sylvia. Yes. So that is, again, and you don't have to have the cloud practitioner to have the certified developer. So if this makes sense of what you're trying to do, by all means. But that was a good question, and thank you. Let's go to the next slide. So again, software and web development, these are mostly, in this one is a little interesting, because certifications are useful, but usually in web and app development, employers are going to be looking more at your portfolio, which was I referring to when I was trying to answer Sylvia's question, than certifications themselves. Certifications are useful if you are looking for an entry-level job, okay? For example, for Python, there's the entry-level Python programmer. The one that is one step above is the associate in Python, again, by the Python Institute. And then AWS Certified Developer. That's another one that you could be looking at into, Sylvia. But for a lot of employers, they want to see what you have created. okay? Because developer means that you have created something, and again, you have written something, even if it's an application, if it's a game, whatever it is, they just want to see what is your proficiency with the languages themselves. But certifications are definitely useful and definitely could be complementary as well to other things. All right, moving on. Let's go. All right, so now we go into the area. Is Chris here? Oh, no, okay, great. All right. Okay, actually we're good. We have 10 minutes to talk about some other resources. All right. So before we go into the next slide, I talked about how do you acquire knowledge, right? If you are not pursuing a degree, if that's not what you're just trying to get a job, you're just trying to get into the field, and you have little or no knowledge, or you're trying to prepare yourself for the certification, right? So I think that the best way is again community colleges and is under the workforce development, your non-credit classes. But if you're ready and if you think and if you want to start with a degree, by all means, go that way. Here at Montgomery College, our sister program, the Information Technology Institute, offers a lot of different courses. And Anthony, if you'll be so kind, let's go to the next slide. This is some of the courses that they offer. Some of them are so you can just gain knowledge on different areas, and some of them are very basic. If you have very little knowledge of IT, some of them are foundational knowledge, all right? And then some of them prepare you for certifications. These courses are offered in different campuses, different areas of the college, and in different times during the spring and the fall. So you will have to look at the catalog. They are not offered all the time sometimes. So, but again, that is one resource. You're trying to gain knowledge. You're trying to prepare yourself for certification. This is one resource, okay? Non-credit classes at your community college. All right, let's go to the next slide. The other resource is, well, you're familiar with, is the Ignite Hub. You are here because you have found us and then you have registered for this event. But we do have a lot of other events as well. I don't know if you may be familiar. So let's go to the next slide, because we offer also our guest speaker series, and we have two of them, our Fireside Chat and our Future of Tech. And I think that these are really good information for people that is trying to get into the field for two reasons. Our Fireside Chat Career Speaker Series focuses mostly on people that come and share their career paths. How did they get to where they were? And they share their journey and they share what they did right, what they could have done better. So they're meant to be inspirational. And it's also a good way of you seeing if you're trying to get into that field and say, hey, if they were able to do it, I probably can do it, right? Our Future of Tech Launch and Learn talks about specific technologies that we are using, cutting edge technologies, but not just the technology themselves, but rather the application and why they are important, how they are being applied, and how they are changing the community, the world, the country, etc. I already mentioned this. We offer these coding boot camps, and hopefully we're going to be able to offer them in the spring again. IT Career Pathways workshops, you are attending one of them. We also have career workshops and career coaching, and I'm going to explain that a little bit more in the next slide. So that, as far as career workshops and career coaching, we have partnered with, yes, next slide. Thank you, that one. With Career Catchers, which is a nonprofit here from Montgomery County. We have hired them to provide the following services, which are, again, free, and they are hybrid as well. So first of all, we have a monthly career workshop, and they are offered hybrid, and they range in topics anywhere from like the job of finding a job, resume writing, transferable skills. So again, that's for anybody looking for a job or trying to improve their posture with employers. The other one, it's a one-on-one career coaching. And again, this is free coaching that you will get with a career coach. Chris is our career coach, and also he is the one that is the presenter for our monthly career workshops. The only two things is like, A, you have to reside in Montgomery County, and B, you have to be looking for a career in the IT field for the one-on-one career coaching. To attend the workshops is open to anybody as well. I have a couple more slides. The next one is actually happening tomorrow And our partners helped asked us to kind of share this with you guys. It's going to be here in person at the Rockville campus here at Montgomery College. Is a resource fair from 3 to 6 p.m. and is sponsored by our partners with a program called TechMap. TechMap is basically a program that we are running to a grant with the Department of Labor, I believe. That basically you can get, if you are selected to participate, you have to apply, and then if you're selected to participate in the program, you can get basically free education and free career coaching, and then you can actually get either your Network Plus or Security Plus certifications, or both of them. Actually, I'm gonna ask Anthony, our lab coordinator, talk a little bit about that because he is a graduate of TechMap.
Hi, everyone. So, as Eduardo was saying, TechMap is basically an accelerator program funded by the Department of Labor, the Federal Department of Labor, through the EARN grant to fund underserved populations to get their foot in the door into IT. And like he was saying, you would get your Network Plus, your Security Plus, and in addition to free education and training, and it culminates in being able to attend a course from the Baltimore Cyber Range and being trained in SOC analysis. And then from there, with their career coaching resources, you could get a job, as the ultimate end goal of the program. And so they are hosting their Tech Career Resource Fair tomorrow from 3 to 6 p.m. And then in addition to that, one second, I'm going to move the slides. Oh, where's the... In addition to that, on the 22nd, in coordination with us here at the Ignite Hub, with the TechMap program and our colleagues at the Institute of Information Technology Institute here at the college, we will be hosting a meetup event here on October 22nd at 6:30, where they will be hosting an info session about TechMap. You could learn more about it. And then for those of you that would attend in person, there would be networking with other professionals in the field here in the building, as well as with the team that works in TechMap, and complimentary refreshments as well.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you so much. And again, this is a great resource. You're interested, again, you can either attend this fair tomorrow or the event on October 22nd. So again, you can register through our website. And last but not least, I want to recommend this to anybody that has attended any of these three sessions, okay? Obviously, you're here because you're interested in a career in IT, right? And I have tried, hopefully you were able to, I was able to provide some information to all of you about the specific paths in IT and skills. But we are going to have this series starting on October 29, and then it's going to be 4 sessions with Jonathan Corrales here at the Hub, completely free, and is navigating the DMV Tech Job Market Workshop Series. So Jonathan Corrales, he has his own company, and he is very, very familiar with what's happening right now with the tech job market in this area. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a heads up. It's a little bit hard right now, and we are all very aware of what's happening with the federal government and the layoffs and all that kind of stuff. I'm pretty sure he's going to cover all that. But most importantly, he's going to give you good pointers so how you can become a better candidate and what is a better way to search for these jobs. All right. So I definitely recommend that you sign up for this. And the most important thing, if you attend all 4 sessions, you will be eligible, you'll be entering the draw to get a personal one-on-one career coaching session with Jonathan. All right. And I think that, wow, right on time. If Anthony, if you are, yes, please, can you advance? So a couple more things before we depart. I'm going to ask you for a couple more minutes of your time. So again, reflection. Out of what was covered in this presentation, what stood out for you the most? And the second one, what action or actions will you take after attending this presentation? You all are here because you're interested. So what is your action? Doesn't have to be a big thing. So what is that action? Am I going to investigate a little bit more about this tech map and I'm going to sign up for Jonathan's workshops? Am I going to start doing a little bit more research? Am I going to talk to Chris about the, career coaching? What is it? Um, or am I going to start looking a little bit more about this particular certification or whatever it is? So what is that you are going to do after this, okay? And that's very personal for each one of you, and anybody wants to share, great. Uh, and last but not least, I'm going to ask you to please, next slide, to complete our thank you. First of all, thank you. Thank you for attending this and for spending the last 2 hours. For those of you who accompanied us in the previous two sessions, thank you again. We're really grateful. I am really grateful. And I hope that this was useful to all of you. If you have additional questions, you can contact me to my email. Again, a copy of this presentation will be emailed to all of you. And last but not least, on the next slide, I'm going to ask you all to take 2 minutes, just 2 more minutes to complete this survey. And Anthony is going to put the link on the chat for the person attending on Zoom. Please be honest and let me know how did I do. If this was useful to you, what would you like to hear more? We really look into these surveys here at the Hub with our director to do planning and to improve our services and our offerings to all of you. And again, I thank you, all of you, for being here tonight. And for those of you who attended the other two sessions, or if you're just attending tonight, like I always said, you can be anywhere, but you chose to spend some time with us. And I hope that this was useful to all of you. I hope that the best luck to all of you in your career search and your job search. And then let us know if there's anything else that we can do for you, or is any connections that we can, anybody that we can connect you with. But thanks again. And on behalf of the Ignite Hub and everybody here, thank you so much. Have a good night, and thank you for having attended this workshop series. Thank you.